6 o'clock on the dot this Election Day 2024. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. And right now, the polls are closing in Georgia. Election 2024 here in Tennessee. Secretary of State Trey Hargett telling WTN's The Drive with Brian Wilson it's been steady voter turnout statewide and when we might see the first results.
Some counties will start hitting us with numbers almost immediately at 7 o'clock. There will be some other counties out there. It does take longer because they may have lines. But typically by midnight, we have 90-plus of our 95 counties that have reported election results to us.
46% of voters in Tennessee did so early. Here's Dave Packer.
Polls have begun closing in some states this year. With the race so close, Gen Z could tip the balance. These young voters at Arizona State University in Tempe today supporting both presidential tickets.
Trump's a better president, you know. Donald Trump will gain this victory. I know for a fact.
I have a lot of hope for what Kamala's, what her campaign is all about.
I'm just worried for my safety and for my future kids, especially with the economy.
The Harris campaign says a federal lawsuit seeking to block Georgia voters from hand-returning mail-in ballots before Election Day rejected by a Trump-appointed judge. Republicans had claimed that the 7 Georgia counties that were accepting hand-delivered mail-in ballots after the early voting period were violating the law. Law enforcement and state officials confirming to ABC News that the FBI believes a series of dubious bomb threats targeting the battleground states of Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Georgia came from Russia.
Here in Tennessee, the Secretary of State's office has turned over to police reports that some voters received texts from numbers they didn't recognize informing them that their presidential ballots didn't count. Secretary of State Trey Hargett says that's bogus. And right now in our nation's capital,
there's no indication right now that it had anything to do with the election.
That's Capitol Police Chief Tom Banger saying they had to close the visitor center following the arrest of a man trying to enter the building smelling like fuel. He had flammable items in his backpack. It's unclear if the man was planning to light himself or the items in his book pack on fire, but an investigation's ongoing. Several people are under arrest in Europe connected to an alleged plot to put incendiary devices on commercial aircraft. Poland and Lithuania have now arrested 5 people suspected of involvement, and a senior U.S. official says it was part of a wider plot by Russia's security services. The Wall Street Journal first reported the alleged plot. Here's Patrick Reevell from the Foreign Desk.
The Kremlin has predictably dismissed the reports that it tried to place incendiary devices on planes bound for the U.S. 2 incendiary devices ignited in July at DHL logistics hubs in Germany and the U.K. A senior U.S. official told ABC that the U.S. believes that was part of a wider plot by Russia's security services to send incendiary devices on cargo or passenger planes that would potentially end up in the U.S.
That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, still dealing with a crash here downtown, 40 westbound at Broadway. The right shoulder is blocked. Then near the airport, 40 eastbound right before Briley Parkway. North of town in Jolton, Highway Patrol working a crash 24 westbound at Whites Creek Pike. And then we've got Harding Pike at Woodland Drive. Got a crash reported there. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN.
It is now 7 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on SuperTalk 99.7. I am Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and you're listening to the special coverage from the Wilson County Fairgrounds. The entire team is here, and we have two big announcements to make. Indiana and Kentucky have been called by Fox News for Trump. That gives him 19 electoral college votes.
Trump!
And Vermont predictably has gone for Harris. That's 3 electoral votes. So right now, the score, if you're keeping along at home, is 19 electoral college votes for Trump and 3 for Kamala Harris. The night is still going. We are getting a little bit of breaking news. And if I could, Chris, let me turn to you because you were watching it. We have had some disruptions in the Atlanta, I guess the greater Atlanta area.
Yeah, there were bomb threats being called in Georgia at a polling place outside of Atlanta. It was at the Kofor Library. Police responded. It's in DeKalb County. DeKalb County.
DeKalb.
Oh, good. Georgia boy here. Police have done multiple bomb sweeps at different areas as threatening calls have come in. They haven't found a bomb yet, but who is going to be doing bomb threats right now, do you think?
Well, I don't know, but you know they said the earlier ones came from a Russian number. So I don't know. It seems like to me that would, that they would have some interest in sowing the seeds of chaos.
I would ask
but
is,
I hear what you're saying.
Is it the same people that had the flooding toilets? That's what I want to know.
Plumbing company? Something like that?
We have a team of volunteer plumbers standing by.
There you go.
Well, and I get the point Chris is making is that, look, I think that Trump supporters right now, whether or not we are feeling very good. I don't know that Kamala Harris supporters are feeling very good right now about their prospects. And that is evidenced by, and Chris and I were talking about this just a moment ago, I watch these presidential elections like I watch a Georgia football game, right? I'm way, way high and way down low and never in between. And right now I'm way up high based on the reaction that we're getting out of the New York Times, Washington Post, and some of these other media organizations that immediately, once they started seeing some of these exit polls, started explaining to us why Kamala Harris was always working from a deficit, why Kamala Harris was never going to be as popular. I mean, they've begun creating the narrative to announce that Donald Trump's going to win this election. At least it feels that way to me.
8 minutes ago, Milwaukee election officials say the release of their final vote count will be delayed. Officials say 31,000 ballots. I'm sorry, I lost my story here. 31,000 ballots apparently, my computer just did, but they had some problem in counting 31,000 ballots. They think it doesn't mean anything. They just have to recount them again because of a failure of the machine, but they say they will get it straightened out before there it is. Will be recounted because doors on the ballot tabulators not properly sealed. No reason to believe any ballots already counted have been tampered with, or no estimate on how long a delay there will be. Florida. We're expecting votes to come in pretty soon from Florida, and the early votes will come in because they count them in advance in Florida, and we'll get that soon. In the past, that has always tended to favor Democrats. Not clear at all from what I've seen out of the state of Florida, which I watch pretty closely, that will be the case. Republicans doing very well in early voting. Georgia polls about to close in the battleground state of Georgia. The first votes have included at least some cast before Election Day. They say they don't know if the advance vote will favor Democrats as it has in the past because voters don't register by party in the state of Georgia. So, again, to recap, just giving you the latest information, we have Indiana, we have Kentucky, not surprisingly going red, and we have for Trump, and we have Vermont going blue for Kamala Harris. The score, if you're keeping along at home, 19 for Trump, 3 for Kamala Harris.
Long way to go to 270.
Yep, it is a long way. But you're right. I mean, what will happen is the finger pointing will begin, and the explanations and how this thing possibly went wrong, all of that will start to now trickle out. You'll start to hear that from key players along the way as we go along. I mean, look, it's a long way to 270. Who knows what the night holds? But I got to tell you, at this point, I'm feeling, I don't know, reasonably optimistic. Dan?
Well, there's no surprises with Kentucky and so forth. I mean, these are all states that we expected to go Trump. To me, the better storyline right now is voter enthusiasm, the fact that everywhere you look online, and Chris, I'm sure you saw this as well on Twitter, where you just see a lot of young males, a lot of males. Maybe they're Joe Rogan people, I don't know. But what I'm telling you is that from what I can tell on Twitter and the videos that I've seen, you know, these are conservative commentators and so forth, but it does look like there's a lot of young conservative males that are coming out.
Yeah, the late male surge seems to be real, and it seems to be real across a couple states. I've seen Jack Posobiec talking about that, and Charlie Kirk and those guys. In Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, you're having young men getting off work and heading to their polling location.
Why did you ask Chris Hand to comment on young males? Dan,
we thought he might have more of a point of reference.
Yeah, I mean, is that the point you're trying to make there, Mandis?
Whatever you think.
That's exactly what it is, Matt.
Sure. No, and actually rightly so. But yeah, I mean, I do think that you're going to see a break, certainly amongst young males. Now, what the Kamala Harris people are dependent on, they have to have, and I don't know that they have it or not, they have to get out 25-year-old females to vote for her. That is not to say, because I had a caller today that pointed out, rightly so, that largely 25-year-old females, no offense to any 25-year-old females currently in the auditorium right now, but largely 25-year-old females are going to break Democrat regardless of what issues are on the table. The point is whether or not the Harris people can convince them to get off the couch, get in the car, and go vote. And so if you see a larger turnout amongst those demographics, but I don't think that men break in that fashion in this election, particularly with the Joe Rogans of the world and the Elon Musks of the world talking the way that they do about Donald Trump.
I think part of the thing, too, is men have been so vilified by, you know, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and all these folks
on
the whole toxic masculinity thing. I think that there's a lot of men that are just a little ticked off at that.
There's absolutely been a war on men. And I think, you know, you've seen the ad campaigns where Harris is saying, you know, hey, wives, lie to your husband, wink, wink. They don't know what's going to happen in the booth. I think you're actually going to see that in reverse with a lot of guys who are not going to tell their wives that they're voting for Trump.
How many of you ladies in the audience lied to your husbands and voted for Kamala Harris? By a show of hands. I don't see a lot of hands, guys. Just throwing it out there. I mean, but what kind of messaging is that?
Lie to your spouse.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're united under the sight of God Almighty for a permanent union to share life together, raise children, raise a family together. Oh, by the way, it's perfectly okay to lie to him just about this one little thing. What? What are you talking?
Well, what's an even weirder flex is when you see the ads with the dads who are like, I want to vote to make sure my daughters can have abortions. Like, what?
What?
That's what you're going with?
Oh, yeah. Did you see that video? The guy comes out and he's crying because he's excited to vote for Kamala Harris because he wants his daughters to have abortions. That is the strangest thing I've ever seen.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. Even if you're a pro-choice person, what you're saying is absolutely vile.
Well, the Democrats that have been over the years pro-choice, which is a position that we might disagree with, but you can kind of understand where's the government's role, has now become a pro-abortion, unashamedly pro-abortion stand, which is vile.
And Dan was talking about a video online where a man is crying because he was so proud to be able to vote so his daughter could have an abortion someday.
Bizarre.
That was cringy. The cringier of those ad campaigns about the women, it's okay to tell stories and, to be dishonest. Do you see the one with the group of men? There's one with a group of dudes, like hunting buddies, and they're all like, all right, let's go make America great. And then the one guy's like, ooh, he's going to vote for Harris. And he's like, hey, buddy, did you make America great? Yeah, I sure did. It's like, where do these guys exist?
They don't.
Because I want to go to their homes and smack them one. If they do exist. I mean,
there's that toxic masculinity we keep talking about, Matt.
True that. But this is the dead zone, though, guys, and we recall it every few years when we do these election night coverage watch parties that we've all been doing for so many years. You get a dead zone between like 6 and 9 where nobody seems to really know anything. We're all anxiously anticipating the next batch of results.
And the polls are closing in North Carolina in 15 minutes. We got Pennsylvania and Michigan in about 45 minutes. Then we got, Wisconsin, Arizona about an hour after that.
The early reports, we just have a few trickle-in reports from Georgia, of course, a battleground state. It's pretty close, 50-50 in the early going, but it's really a very small sample so far. But we will be starting to get some numbers from the state of Georgia in the very near future, except for those polls which are going to stay open late to accommodate the phone threats that apparently they got. So
one of the questions I would have, and we were talking about the messaging of Kamala Harris earlier, is, and Brian, you could probably give some really good thoughts on this. Have you ever seen a political party where their messaging has been as bizarre as Kamala Harris's has been, where it's all attacks and no truth?
Yeah, it's interesting. So much attack. And it's like I heard somebody describe Kamala Harris this way. She's got a file cabinet in her head, and she knows that there are 2 or 3 questions that she's likely to be asked. And you ask her the question, and she opens up the file cabinet, she pulls out the file, she reads the answer, and that is her talking point. That's what's been prepared for her. You can't get her off of it. Now, in some ways, that's disciplined. But in some ways, it's maddening.
It's robotic is what it is.
It is really, and people see when you do the follow-up question and she just doesn't want to answer, and then it looks awkward. And I think a lot of people look, when you saw, after her announcement was made, there was unbridled enthusiasm among the Democrats. Oh, at least it's not Joe Biden. But then they were excited about Kamala Harris, but that faded.
Very quickly.
Because it became very clear that she was an empty suit. Yep. She's very lightweight and could not handle the rigors of a modern campaign the way, for example, J.D. Vance does, which is he's brilliant,
flawless,
flawless. It's fun to watch.
And J.D. Vance also to get squirreled, as Murphy would say. He represents that new generation of leadership that Kamala Harris has been talking about. He's a guy in my age range who had to go off to fight in those forever wars, who is from an area that's been ravaged by the opioid epidemic in this country. He understands so well the actual struggles of the American citizens in a way that Kamala and even Trump, to a lesser degree, can understand.
Well, and to your point, Chris, J.D. Vance is better going into combative interviews at destroying narratives and premises than anybody that I've seen in our lifetime, where he will go in and the media, their ability to set up a premise in their own fashion to get you to accept certain aspects of that premise before you even answer the question. He refuses to accept it. He'll circle back and say, well, here's why your entire question is moot, because the premise doesn't really exist in my world. I love it.
And
absolutely.
While he destroys them, he does it with a smile.
All right, listen, it is 20 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. More in just a moment. We're coming to you live from the Wilson County Fairgrounds. You're listening to exclusive coverage of our election 2024 on SuperTalk 99.7.
The Guaranteed Offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Polls have closed in some key states, and we have the day's closing money news coming up at 6:30 on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN.
You're listening to live coverage from Wilson County Fairgrounds. You're listening to the SuperTalk 99.7. Real quick, we have some numbers coming in from Florida, Dan Mandis, and those are amazing numbers.
So in Florida, Trump is up 8. In Georgia, Trump is up by 4. In Georgia, 4% of the vote is in, and in Florida, 62% of the vote is in there.
But let me tell you what's interesting about that Florida number. At 62%, that's the eastern part of the state, the more Democrat part of the state. The western part of the state, the Florida Panhandle, is very conservative, and that is a romping in the state of Florida in the Sunshine State. So looking good there.
Yep.
We want to check in with Jay Harper, who's down at the Blackburn headquarters tonight, where they are getting ready to make some announcements. I think I would imagine not long after the polls close, we'll have a pretty good sense of how that race is going to be decided. Tell us what's going on there, Jay.
Hey there, Brian. Yes, I am on site at the Marsha Blackburn election watch party, if you will. We are down in Franklin, Tennessee, actually Cool Springs area at the Hilton here. Yeah, I tell you, I got here a little before 6 p.m., and the crowd, as you can imagine, is really starting to stream in. And in talking with a number of people here, Dan, kind of like we were talking about this morning on Nationals Morning News, people cautiously optimistic here with respect to the presidential election. One thing that also really stands out to me anyway is the amount of young people here. It is a pretty interesting mix of demographics, but there are quite a few young folks here for this Marsha Blackburn event.
Jay, this is Matt. Is Marsha hanging back for the moment? And have you gotten an opportunity to find out when you anticipate that you'll have a chance to talk with her, or whether she will mingle with the crowd? What's her status?
Yeah, Matt, currently she has not made an appearance. And speaking with their communications people, they tell me that, yes, by all means, we will have an opportunity to get her on the line and let you and the crew there chat with her. But in terms of timing of that, we are just kind of in a wait-and-see posture in that regard.
All right, Jay Harper, thank you very much. We will be checking back in with you as the night progresses. Appreciate your reporting there from the Cool Springs area at Marsha Blackburn headquarters. Again, the polls should be, I don't think it'll take long to give us some sense of that particular race, and it'll be over pretty soon.
Well, the most interesting aspect of that race, to me at least, is whether or not Marsha Blackburn can outpace Donald Trump, right? So we expect the margin between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris to be robust in the state of Tennessee. Marsha could score, in my eyes, a victory if she could make her margin over Gloria Johnson just a little bit stronger than Donald Trump's margin over Kamala Harris.
We have some reporting to come in from the state of Virginia. Now, Virginia, very interesting in that it was expected to go blue. We kept hearing from the Trump people, hey, you know what, this may be closer than you imagine. About half of the vote is in and counted in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Dan Mandis.
So right now with 60% of the vote is Kamala Harris. Let's see here. Hold on. Help me out, Brian. It switched on me. You've got...
I'm looking at 60.22% for Kamala Harris.
It literally just changed.
Yeah, that just changed.
And now it's changing back again. But what's happening is some of the big cities are coming in and big ways.
Early.
It did have Kamala Harris at 60%. Trump, before it changed, was like 38, 39%. It was, when Brian went to me, it was literally 38 or 37%. Yeah. And now, as Brian said, all the big cities have come in, but they were neck and neck for like half a second. I was excited.
A robust 2.53% of the vote total reporting.
Whoa.
I mean, I'm just throwing it out there.
I saw something out of Georgia that I thought was very interesting, and it made Jake Tapper on CNN almost lose his lunch. There's a swing and exit polling among independents of 20 points for Trump.
Well, and right now, Donald Trump, 6.1% in. And for any newbies in the audience here in Wilson County at the Fairgrounds or listening on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN, traditional wisdom has it that the rural counties that can count their votes quicker will report first. So you expect that there will be a spike for Trump early, and then that will even out level out to a certain degree as the night goes on, and more of the urban areas like Atlanta, like Augusta, Georgia, and those types of places report in. But right now, Donald Trump's leading Kamala Harris with about 6%, and 6% is a very early total, but 57% to 43% in the state of Georgia. Even if she eats into that by a few percentage points, as long as, he can manage that lead throughout the course of the
All right, got to take a break for the news. 6:30 on SuperTalk 99.7.
6:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories on this Election Day 2024. We've got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. And right now, Chuck Severson says polls have closed in Georgia and a few other states.
ABC's Selena Wang with the Harris campaign in Washington says about battleground Pennsylvania.
They're seeing high turnout for Puerto Rican voters in that critical battleground state and strong enthusiasm on college campuses and high student turnout. Senior advisors have been telling me in recent days that they believe the comments made at Trump's recent Madison Square Garden rally, in particular, those comments from that comedian calling Puerto Rico a, quote, floating island of garbage, has been swaying undecided voters in this final stretch.
Preliminary results from national and battleground state exit polls show the economy is the top-rated issue in Georgia, least so in Michigan. Legal abortion wins majority backing. 68 to 73% across these states as nationally think democracy in this country is threatened.
Right now in Tennessee, Secretary of State Trey Hargett says voter turnout's been steady but not strong, and he warns about a text some people received from a number they didn't recognize.
Yeah, some people received a text from a number they didn't recognize saying that their vote had been canceled.
Yeah, Hargett says it's bogus. They've turned it over to authorities to investigate, find out who it's from. Money News, Dave Packer.
The major indexes were higher on this election day as Wall Street awaits the results. At the close, the Dow gained 427 points. The Nasdaq was up 259 points, and the S&P 500 gained 70 points. A volatile day of trading for Trump Media, which was halted several times today. Shares of the former president's social media company were 15% higher in early trading, only to slide back with a 5% gain on the day. Shares have risen as investors have bet on a Trump election victory. If Trump loses, the price of the stock is expected to collapse. Bitcoin back around $70,000 today, nearing an all-time high. Those Trump bettors are expecting the former president to be more friendly to crypto. Back at work at Boeing after more than 7 weeks, the strike by 33,000 factory workers coming to an end. Union machinists voting today to accept a company contract offer with a 38% wage increase over 4 years.
That is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, still showing police working a crash in the Gulch, 40 westbound at Broadway. Then looks like 65 northbound right before Old Hickory Boulevard in Madison. Police on the scene there. 65 northbound after Old Hickory Boulevard, exit 74 in Brentwood. So on the other side of downtown. Traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
It is 39 minutes now past the hour at 6 o'clock on SuperTalk 99.7. We are starting to get results in from some of the more predictable states. West Virginia has been called for Trump. If you're counting along at home, that is 4 additional electoral college votes, and that's a good thing. We also, by the way, in the state of West Virginia, have picked up our first Republican Senate seat, taking it away from Democrats, and that is a good thing. So we're well on our way. We've been watching, of course, the votes coming in from Virginia, from North Carolina. We're waiting on South Carolina votes and Georgia votes. Georgia vote, of course, the battleground states of North Carolina and Georgia, very important. But the interesting thing that I think that we heard a minute ago is how big the turnout is in the state of Florida for Trump in the eastern part of the state. Now, there's the Panhandle is in the Central Time Zone, but everything else is in the Eastern Time Zone. So everything in the Panhandle is very conservative. A lot of military there, a lot of conservative. They don't call it Lower Alabama for nothing. It is a place where they're very conservative. And if they're doing that well on the east part of the state, before the western vote comes in, that's a very good sign in the state of Florida. Last I saw, up 8. Plus 8.
And what I'm looking at, and I'm looking from the Washington Post page, and I think a lot of these are resourcing from the same source material, but Washington Post has 73% of the votes in Florida. Because as we've mentioned, they go ahead and tabulate their early voting, and they collect that, set it aside, so they just dump it right as they begin voting. 73% of the vote in, and Donald Trump is up 54.1% to 45.1% in Florida. That is a margin. I mean, that's 4.49 million votes to 3.7 million votes in the state of Florida. It looks like that's going to be a runaway for Donald Trump if these votes hold. 73% in. That's what I'm seeing.
Do we know about Miami-Dade County? Because that's always one of the metro areas that people were shocked when Trump won that a while ago, a couple of years ago. 8 years ago now. I
don't have a breakdown yet, Dan, but I can try to get it for you.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at even Georgia. Trump is widening his margin in the state of Georgia now. Only 8.6% of the vote in the state of Georgia. But Donald Trump has a 60.8% to a 38.8% lead. That's about a 100,000 vote margin in the state of Georgia. Now, once again, expect that in that state.
Very early.
Yeah,
right.
That's early, and those are rural communities, and that's going to tighten up as you get Atlanta, Fulton County, DeKalb County, and that's
well, it's not if he wins. I mean, obviously we want him to win, but also you can read a lot into how he wins and how many people come out and the demographics of the people that are coming out, because it's one thing to win Florida, but by those margins, I mean, those are huge.
Well, trust me when I say this, Dan, I would love to see Donald Trump declared the victor before 11 p.m. Central Time tonight, but I'm getting a little bit nervous because as listeners to my show know, when that happens, it's free drinks for the house on Matt Murphy should Donald Trump be declared the victor before 11 p.m. tonight.
Okay.
And those in the audience are highly anticipatory of that happening. And you know what? I'll bring out the credit card if it happens. That's how excited I would be for a Donald Trump victory. Yeah. There you go.
Well, listen, we got a long way to go.
That's what I'm laying on the line. What are you laying on the line, Mandis?
Nothing.
Looking at North Carolina, the Fox News numbers with about, just less than 2% in. It's looking strong for Harris, but that means it's probably coming from the metropolitan areas. One of the things I was very happy to hear about in North Carolina is in the flood zone. They said that early voting was much better than they expected, and that is a really good sign. I was really wondering whether the state of North Carolina and whether, quite frankly, Eastern Tennessee, according to Trey Hargett, they turned out in great numbers. They were able to, find a way to cast their ballots, and those ballots are being counted. That's great news. But North Carolina numbers coming in slowly now, as I say, less than 2%. Trying to check Virginia, 11.9, 12% basically. It is 56% Harris, 42% Trump. Again, watching very closely in the Commonwealth of Virginia. If he does well there, it could indicate something else is going on. Let's go up to New Hampshire real quick, because that was the other one that Trump people were sort of interested in. 0.1% of the vote in. It is Harris 54 and Trump 44.7. So the polls are closed and the counting begins there. It's now 54% Harris, 44% Trump. It changes every second.
But in those numbers, he only has to make up 7,000 votes currently.
Right.
Like this is still anybody's state.
Right. I agree. And so there we are. All right, guys. So again, we're off to, I think, a good start. There are some optimistic signs here, good signs. But I think we're going to be slugging it out in North Carolina. I think we're going to be slugging it out in Georgia. It's going to be interesting to watch how those states go as we look forward. Because, I mean, honestly, the whole idea that Trump only needs to pick up one of the Rust Belt states is if he does well in North Carolina and in Georgia.
Which looks good so far. My question is this: if Pennsylvania closed on the Eastern Time Zone, that would have been, or did they stop at 8 Eastern Time? I want to say traditionally it's 8 Eastern Time, so we're not going to get any results until then. Okay, that makes sense.
7 Central.
And then only in those few counties where there were some election issues, there were some voting machine issues, that they're going until 10 o'clock Eastern Time. So we've got a little while for Pennsylvania. But, once again, eyeballs right now, the expectation is South Carolina and Florida are going Trump. Should not be a problem there unless the night goes squirrely. Ohio as well. But for Georgia, for North Carolina, and even for Virginia, and, I will agree with Chris Hand. I don't know that I am as confident as that Donald Trump can achieve a victory in Virginia. But let me tell you, if Donald Trump wins Virginia, it's going to be a bad night for my credit card. Let's put it that way. Because if Donald Trump wins Virginia,
I'm rooting for Virginia.
it's going to be a really good night.
We all got to root for
America,
Virginia,
right?
I can't imagine the state that elected Glenn Youngkin is going to come back 2 years later and then say, "Oh, we're less conservative than we were just an election ago." It doesn't add up to me.
I mean, my expectation is, as we were talking about earlier today, Chris, is just the sheer numbers of government employees that look at Donald Trump. They work in Washington, D.C. They live right across the line in those unincorporated, the Falls Church and Alexandria, all those areas that Brian Wilson used to hang out at the dinner parties. and those people are all, federal government employees. That's the only way that Virginia flips back. But I agree. I'm hopeful like you.
North Carolina, the exit polling data there is interesting from the Associated Press. They talked to 3,600 voters in the state. They say that North Carolina voters were more likely to say that Trump was better able to handle immigration. He was slightly preferred to handle the economy, and she was seen as strong on the issue, predictably, of abortion and health care. They were split on which candidate was able to better handle tax policy, which I don't know why you would ask that question. But, that's some of the exit polling data coming out of the state of North Carolina. A very important battleground
Does it say,
state.
Brian, when they ask these questions, do they say what was your main issue? Like we heard the issues that they were concerned about, but what is the issue that people are voting on? I mean, we've seen anywhere from...
I don't know if they were asking this particular case, but what I can tell you is that almost every poll I have seen says the number one issue is economy, the number two issue is immigration. That seems to be universal across the country.
I just don't understand, and we talk about this on my show all the time, I'm sure we all do, where you see what's happened over the past 3.5 years, and there seems to be a disconnect between Kamala Harris being part of the Biden administration that has made such monumental mistakes and the woman running for vice president. It's like they're not connecting the two. That's why I believe that the people that are not voting for Trump and are voting for Kamala, they're really voting against Donald Trump because they hate him for any number of reasons. Because she doesn't have anything to offer. There's no resume that's impressive. There's also no real policy things that she can point out that the American people can point to and say, yeah, I like that policy except abortion.
Yeah, because anyone that points to a policy position that she's taken over the last 5 years, I can point you to another time where she's taken the opposing policy position, whether it be fracking, energy policy, border security, or whatever the issue might be. I want to update this story, and I know we talked about it a minute ago, but in Wisconsin, 31,000 ballots in Milwaukee will be retabulated. Officials there are reasserting that there was no suggestion of ballot tampering in that situation, but they claim or they say that they discovered that the doors on the ballot tabulation boxes had not been properly secured, and because of that, while they found no signs of tampering, they would retabulate those 31,000 ballots that went through the machines to ensure the integrity of the count, gave no estimate on the length of the delay, but unofficial returns are expected overnight or early Wednesday. So you're not going to find out Wisconsin's vote total unless Donald Trump is leading, or, Kamala Harris would be leading by more than that 31,000 figure.
All right. Excuse me. I was having one of those.
Oh, it's all good.
Games. What do you call it? Charades with my wife, telling her I'm waiting for my pizza. So that important things must be taken care of. I'm just looking around about, I don't know, not much coming in from North Carolina, about 8% coming in from South Carolina, 14 and 15% coming in from the state of Georgia. How long do you think it'll be before we start getting numbers here in Tennessee? And when that happens, how quickly before you think Fox calls Tennessee as another state? I think it'll be pretty quick. What
Seconds.
They got the graphic ready to go.
Yeah, they're ready.
Got to take a break. 50 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on SuperTalk 99.7.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
Election coverage 2024. Brian Wilson reporting from the Wilson County Fairgrounds. Let's check in once again with our roving reporter, Jay Harper, who's over at Blackburn headquarters tonight. Hello, Jay.
Hey there, Brian. Yes, we are at the Hilton in the Cool Springs area here in Metro Nashville. I'm currently being joined by a gentleman who is the Knox County Mayor coming from East Tennessee. That would be Mr. Glenn Jacobs. Mr. Mayor, it's great to see you. So what are you feeling here tonight?
Well, I think it's going to be an exciting night. I think Donald Trump's going to be president. Of course, Marsha Blackburn will be the next senator from the state of Tennessee. Also, potentially, I think that we could even see some increases in Republican majorities in the state house here in Tennessee. So I think it's going to be a great night.
For you, what have you seen has been the top of mind issue for voters this election cycle?
Immigration obviously is a huge issue, as well as the economy and inflation and crime and public safety. I think are the things that are on most people's minds the most. Mr.
Mayor, we certainly appreciate your time. Again, we are hoping that we anticipate speaking with Senator Blackburn here in just a bit. And again, appreciate your time and safe travels back to Knoxville.
Thank you very much.
All righty. Well, Brian, again, the crowd beginning to just get thicker and thicker here. So we are anticipating a big night.
All right. Thank you, Jay Harper. It is 58 minutes past the hour. Very quickly, I have Fox calling South Carolina for Trump, and that's a good sign. If you're keeping tabs at home at the Electoral College vote, it's 32 for Trump, 3 for Harris. So that's a very good sign. I'm looking also at the numbers in Virginia. 21% of the vote in. Harris has a lead. It's 53% for Harris, so let's call it 45% for Trump. He doesn't have to win there he doesn't need the Electoral College votes if he does well in other states. But, I mean, what is considered a good turnout there?
For him in Virginia?
Yeah.
Oh, man, if Donald Trump, if he keeps it within 3 or 4 points, I think it's going to be a good night from a popular vote standpoint as well, Brian.
All right, got to go. It's 59 minutes past the hour.
Seven o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories and election 2024. Let's get right to it. Here's Chuck Severson.
Based on our exit polls, ABC News projects Donald Trump will win Kentucky and Indiana. Kamala Harris will win Vermont. ABC's Brian Clark at the ABC News Decision Desk on preliminary polling data from Georgia.
Women are dividing by 53 to 46% in favor of Kamala Harris in these preliminary results. Trump is ahead by 12 points in preliminary results among men, 55 to 43%.
According to ABC News preliminary exit poll results, as ABC News Deputy Political Director Avery Harper,
35% of voters say it was the state of the democracy. And that is such an interesting number because from polling that we've seen throughout this cycle, it has always been the economy.
As the top issue, over 55% of early voting in North Carolina, of the over 4 million cast early, were women. That compares to 54% in 2020, says the governor.
Yeah, right now, more Trump projections. Trump's going to win Alabama. He's also, let's see here. This thing is changing. Trump is going to win Alabama